Are we live?
Yep, we should be live on YouTube now.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone. It is 11 o'clock. This is the Southborough Library Board of Trustees meeting on October 16th, coming to order. The first item of business is review, approve the minutes of August 19th, 2022. Do I have any corrections or emendations?
There was a typo in it. At one point it says the library board of the board of trees and not board of trustees. So I have to say, as far as editorial misses, that didn't come up in a spell check. So thank you for sending that to me, and I will make that correction. So you will have to approve as amended. That was the only note that I got after sending them out.
Okay, I have a couple because I'm late to the party, if everyone else is done. All right. In page 1, second paragraph from the bottom, facade restoration continued. It's town council, COUNSEL.
Good catch.
As the lawyer.
Good catch.
As opposed to the group of people, which would be CIL. Then on page 2, bottom paragraph, the same one that has the library board of trees, which actually I really like the sound of, is the community center committee. I think I would capitalize those C's, and the second time it appears, I would also capitalize those C's.
Okay.
And then on the last page, the paragraph signage at the bottom, I think the new chair of the Historic Commission to potentially include language from the recently completed CPC funded facade restoration as opposed to languages.
Good catch.
Those are small, and Mariana is a complete genius at doing these minutes. As near as I can tell, they are beautiful. So please thank her for that.
Well, I will say I did actually have time to review the minutes this time, and we did it together. And then I did a check after. So I know the town council that was added by me. So that is specifically my mistake. So I'll own up to that one. But I will. Those are not big edits, Marguerite. I can definitely make sure that that gets amended pretty quickly.
Thank you for doing that. And between the two of you, these are really wonderful minutes, and it's very reassuring to have you guys doing that, which is wonderful. So do I have a motion to accept as amended?
So moved.
Okay, Janet, and a second?
Second.
Okay, Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Ekberg?
Aye.
Trustee Yazdani?
Aye.
Trustee Maney?
Aye.
Trustee Reagan?
Aye.
Okay, voted to approve as amended. Thank you. Item number 2, the director's report. Ryan, take it away.
Are there any questions on the FY23 budget or expense report? Okay, so just let me know. I always like to do that right at the beginning. I'm going to take sort of the staff locker issue. That's a separate agenda item, and it's sort of interrelated to the Eaton discussion. So I think when we get to the Eaton room, we can talk about all of that. Are there any questions on the facilities, DPW, or IT items? A lot of good news, a lot of work getting completed. If you're wondering where the planter was, that's near the mailbox. It doesn't fit in the restored pillars. So they are working on a new planter. I did, after writing the director's report and sending it out, I did have a discussion with Carol Galbankian. Galbankian Farms donates flowers for that planter. So we just gave her a quick update on what was going on there. She did express an interest in continuing to donate flowers when a new planter is there. So this is a nice opportunity to publicly thank Carol Galbankian and her staff. We always do that in the town the library portion of the town meeting report as well.
Yeah, she's been great. Is the new planter going to be wood like the other one?
We believe so, but we're trying to make sure the wood inside the planter that was there was rotting. So that was a factor. We're trying to make sure that we could, potentially weatherproof it. There was a lot of water around that entryway for a long time, as we all recall. So
I was just wondering if they could use something else besides wood.
it's
Like-
possible. I think they're gonna kind of use materials that they already have on the facility side. I don't know if they were gonna purchase anything new. I think they're building something kind of custom, so I can ask them, Marguerite.
All right, just wondering. Okay, any
I have one
other?
question.
Yes, Kim, go ahead.
So Ryan, I think in the last meeting you mentioned we were waiting for a rain to kind of test for any leaks. So it sounds like we did have rainfall that you felt we weathered appropriately.
Yes, and so that we can kind of, we still have the standard item for the facade restoration later, a little bit later in the agenda, but I think it's worth, because it's come up now, to talk about that. Because this is related to facilities as well. The ceiling tile that was open where the leak was occurring, or at least where most of the water was pooling and coming in through the ceiling, that has been restored. They recut a ceiling tile and put it back up. John's guys were here on the weekend monitoring the rain to make sure. So they did checks throughout the building because they were in town for other reasons. Because we're open Saturday again, we were able to check on the Saturdays we were here. So I am it's I'm probably famous
Don't
last
say
words,
it.
Kim.
Don't say
I
it.
know, but so what I can tell you is that there has been no leak that is discernible that we can see. And then in restoring the ceiling tile, that was before the last major rainfall we had in the past couple weeks. And there has been no damage to the ceiling tile. There's been no water that we can see. So that is good news, everyone. So
Yeah, that's great.
We can retire the L word.
Don't say it.
For
Don't say
now.
it. Jinx this.
I do want to
I
say
know.
that crew of people that come in and do projects for you, Ryan, they do a great job, and we're lucky to have them. And I want to note that publicly.
Yeah, so their names, the facilities team, it's Bob, it's Ron, and it's Frank. So it's the three of them. And John actually is here, and I always say this, I've plunged toilets, but so has John on occasion. So, I think everybody kind of pitches in and it's a good team, but those three guys in particular, and they also rehung the quilt, which I know we had a lot of public requests for. I just did a Facebook post for it with a picture, because I think a lot of people, including the woman who made the quilt, her husband came in asking about it. So, it was nice of them to restore that. So pretty much everything, we have no planned construction projects for once. Everything is working. So these are the kind of reports that I like to give you,
But we're lucky to have those guys. They do a great
Yes.
job.
Absolutely. The library is their second home too. That's the other part of it. Alas. Other items from the director's report.
I gave, just to skip ahead to the end, there's a lot of just sort of mini grant updates. I did also just want to note that the resident who did accidentally fall down the front stairs, he's doing much better. I had a conversation with him earlier this week. So he's recovering. That was not a great day, I can say.
What actually happened to him? Did he break anything, or?
Yes,
yeah,
he did.
Yeah, he fractured his eye socket in 3 places. Yeah.
He took a
Yeah.
hit. Okay.
So Ryan, my question there is, have you contacted the insurance company for the town, and what have they suggested? Because we are kind of on notice with this one situation that we have steps that need to be dealt with before it happens again.
Well, I've created and put, sorry, let me close my email so we don't get notification sounds anymore. I have closed my, I've created and posted a caution sign on the door so
Right.
that people can at least have kind of an early warning. We talked to John about how the entryway can be fixed. Because it's the historic entrance, it was recently restored. We're now looking on specifically putting a partial preservation restriction on the building. That area would fall under that restriction. There's very little that we can do to mitigate, I would say, without a massive structural change. So his suggestion was to permanently close the front entrance. You'll note that in a lot of libraries that have been renovated or restored, a lot of them do close their original entrances. They make that. I was at Shrewsbury yesterday and their original entrance is closed with a big sign on it that says, do not use the door. I don't think we're there yet. I don't want to close the front entrance. It's still used pretty regularly with no incidents. We're going to have an extended conversation with Maya, which is the town's insurer, on different things that could be done. So I don't have an answer for you yet. I can tell you that, to my knowledge, the resident isn't going to file an insurance claim as a result of the accident. So there's not going to be any sort of specific insurance situation with this.
But I think we're on notice, and I think because of this accident, to me, the universe has kind of put us on notice that we have hazardous steps, and I would like to know a tape across the stairs, that's non-slippy stuff. I don't know if that's historic or not, but that was not a light fall. And
Yeah, but I also think we have to consider how many years we've had the stairs. Accidents happen. We can't particularly prevent every accident that's going to happen.
And
I
I
think
would
I
note
do feel
that,
bad that there was a bad fall, but I also think that it isn't necessarily a reason to shut the stairs or make a major alteration. And I think going with what the insurance has to say is probably the smartest move.
all right,
I agree with that. And I would say,
All right.
I would just remind everybody that the recent restoration, we went from having a single central railing to two railings on the side, which isn't going to prevent every accident from happening either. But I, for one, I think it would be a mistake symbolically as well as structurally to permanently close the front. I'm very sympathetic to the situation with Mr. Keyes, if I'm pronouncing his name right. He was both very unlucky and very lucky that it wasn't worse. But unless we feel more inclined towards being concerned about far out legal issues, I think that it would be a mistake as one person's opinion.
other thoughts?
I'd hate to close it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if
Yeah.
there's a middle way
Right.
between closing it, and I think what happened was there are two steps now that they've been cleaned, where you're standing there, you cannot see that there's a step because the granite looks like it's of one piece, and I think that's what happened. But I will be the dissenting voice here, because I think it shouldn't be closed, but I think it should be better marked.
Well, I'm wondering, yeah, I mean, if somebody who's an accident prevention person could take a look, knowing what the accident was, and I mean, if there's a step that's hard to see, maybe you can put a black tape along that one step to highlight it. I mean,
Right,
it's
something like
some
that.
fix, yeah.
He went down the whole
explore-
flight. He went
Yeah.
down from the top to the bottom.
But what, did he trip over his feet? Did he not
He
see the step
just
there?
fell down the stairs, and he was fortunate that it wasn't worse than it was.
He's
Yeah,
an
I'm-
82-year-old
Go ahead.
gentleman.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, what if it's a kid? I mean,
Marguerite also has some historical knowledge here in that there have been other accidents on the stairs.
right,
I
Jane
say that
Smith
this
fell down the
doesn't,
stairs,
yeah, this doesn't happen every day, but this has happened before. It hasn't been as the person has not been injured, I think, this severe. But I think ways like you said, Janet, I think ways to look at talking to safety mitigation people, continuing to have conversations with the insurance can happen. I should also note we're going into, the weather has gotten colder because of the fall. When we go into the winter season and the ground freezes again, the entrance will be closed again. It closes every winter. So there's a good portion of the year where we advertise that the entrance is closed anyway. So we will, we got a couple months before that happens again. So I think just being vigilant, I think having conversations with older residents about where the elevator is and where our accessible entrances are going to be key. I think looking long-term at a library expansion project, we might want to look at having sort of a new primary front entrance. So we might have to think about that as well. That's a consideration.
So Ryan, could I ask you, just as a thing that would make me feel better, could you contact MIA and ask them to either send somebody out or give you something that they've written on the subject of stairs that require a notice posted, just so that we could look at what the options are to deal with that?
I will work with John Parent. He's the one who typically coordinates with the
All right.
insurance on facilities issues. He was the primary when we flooded. So let me just work with him, if that's
Yes.
okay, Marguerite, and we will try to see if we can get some sort of, I don't know if report is the right word. I think some sort of determination in writing is something that we can request, and we can see if the insurance adjuster can do that.
Yeah, and see if they can just come out and take a look even. That would make me feel we'd been a little proactive, so it will not happen again.
Also, I just wanted to ask, I know, Marguerite, you have some history of what's happened on the library steps, but from a town perspective, does John Parent or anyone have any other historical knowledge of any falls that have happened in other town buildings, and whether any precedent has been set on what they've done safety-wise? Because, surely we're not the only building with stairs. So I was just looking to see if there's any other kind of process that the town has gone through that we might be able to take advantage of here.
I can explore that as well, Kim. I do know that there have been steps, if you'll forgive the bad pun, to make the Corderville and the senior center a lot more accessible and a lot more safe, specifically because you're dealing with the senior population there who may have mobility issues. But I don't know any specifics, which is probably for the best, but I know that Highland Street, where the recreation department and youth and family is, that there have been accidents in that area, which I think if you've ever been over there, you're not surprised.
Right.
It's on kind of a hill. The stairwell is very sort of narrow. So we're not the only town facility, I'll say, where this has been a problem.
Good idea. So if you could deal with that, I would feel a lot better. The other person I know who took a bad fall down the steps was Jane Smith when she was the chair of the trustees. But she did say she was wearing clogs. But still, someone's always going to be wearing clogs, right? So there it is. Anyway, thank you. That's good. Any other things in the director's report we have questions about?
Well, I don't know how much time you guys want to talk about this. We should note that I usually don't write you a little paragraph. There was sort of an archaeological dig that happened that extended to the library. We were not aware of it. I spent about a week and a half trying to get more information. I really put everything I know at this point into the director's report. I think some of you, I kept trying to coordinate with DPW. I thought the town administrator had been notified of this. I found out that really no town department was aware that they were aware that the dig was happening. They were not aware that there was a site plan where the library was partially covered by this. Janet and I were able to meet briefly with Freddie yesterday afternoon, just to kind of talk about the disruption to the native plant garden. You know, I think that they can now schedule what they need to get done based on the availability of the people that they were going to work with. So hopefully this is behind us. You know, again, I want to let you guys have a discussion about it. I'm happy to draft something or to work with a trustee on writing a letter and getting it to the appropriate parties. I really think that this was, you know, to be direct, a failure on just proper communication from St. Mark's to us. So
Does
I'm
everybody know
hoping-
what we're talking about? Okay.
Skulls and bones.
Skulls and Bones. To recast it slightly, the library has had a free archaeological dig and has discovered there are no burials on library land, which is good. And I, 10 minutes ago, was talking to Karen Galligan, who was in my front yard, and she had not been notified either, so. Do we need a letter to say Mark Purple saying, please let us know in the future, or do we just forget it and ask for this to be grass seeded?
That would
We
be
can-
very
we can-
appropriate, I
we
think.
can, yes, so David, we can do that. Marguerite, we can do that. The only problem is that if David had the information that this was going to be at the library, that he would have sent it to us. Mark didn't know that it was going to be at the library. He did come and engage with the archaeologists who were conducting the work. I can tell you that they tried to finish, you know, they ended up doing the library because they were already set up to do it. They had already started the work. They got done with the library portion before the rest of the project. They tried to expedite it. So we can send a letter to Mark. I just think that probably a letter to St. Mark's might be more appropriate, because that was where I think the communication breakdown occurred.
Which should include a thank you, because it was the good parents paying room, board, and tuition who paid for this, and we are a partial beneficiary of their largesse.
Well, now that it's over and it's been patted back down and we have the information that we do not have burials on library land, I'm okay with just letting it go, but if the rest of the trustees want to write a letter, that's fine with me, but I think we should keep in mind that there's still a town meeting coming up when we don't know the disposition of that piece of land.
And I agree, Marguerite. I think it was just one of those situations where, you know, communication was not at its prime, but it wasn't an intentional issue. So I don't see a point of a letter, in my opinion.
Okay. And Kim, Janet, David, thoughts?
I'd let it go.
Yeah, I think what's important is whether we do or whether we don't, that we maintain as good karma as we can with the school and with Mark Purple.
Well, Ryan, thanks for noticing. I think that's a good thing that you noticed so quickly. I mean, I agree with you. If nobody else thinks a letter is necessary, that certainly seems to make sense. I just think it's a bit disappointing that they fell apart in the communication, only because that is such a contested situation.
I have at this point, just to assure all of you and Jane, when Jane reads the minute or watches the minute, watches the meeting later, I have communicated to all appropriate parties that if work is being conducted, even if it's not directly on the building, it's on the library grounds, that I need to be notified of this. We had patrons asking about this immediately. So they come in, they asked me, they asked the library staff, and we need to know what's going on. And we also need to know what to communicate to the public. So that has been communicated to the appropriate parties. I do feel at this point that I've been heard. I've had many conversations about this. Took up, as you can imagine, a pretty significant part of the period while it was going on of my time. And I would like to try to avoid that in the future too. I think all of that could have been preventable. So I've let everybody know. I think the board's decision to kind of, you know, chalk this up to a quick miscommunication and to look at, you know, if this starts to become a systemic problem, I think what we have a bigger issue here that needs to be addressed.
Listening
think
is
we're there.
listening is a conversation. I have changed my mind. I think we should just let it go. I think
Yeah.
what you've done, Ryan, is appropriate and adequate.
Thank you.
Okay, other thoughts? No, good. Okay, so can we move on to, I would like to know about the LSTA grant for 10,000, which was lovely. And also, how does this fit in with the new system of grant reporting and recording that we're undertaking?
Well, the $10,000 grant, I think I've reported on this before.
Mhm.
Mariana and I worked on this together. This was for the LSTA program called At the Table,
Mhm.
which focuses on food and nutrition based programs. We're also looking at, any additional circulating materials or services that we might be able to offer as well. Obviously the cookbook club is going to be involved in this. That many of them wrote letters of support, because that's been such a big group, and they're now meeting again at the library on a regular basis. There is a new reporting structure for the state that I have to do for the LSTA grant. So Mariana and I are learning that. Is that what you're referring to, Marguerite? Is the new tracking platform?
Yes, and also I was under the impression that we were going to keep an ongoing file of grants that were requesting to use the library as part of the grant, outside grants, like the open space garden and so on. Is there kind of a master file now of grants that have been applied for, rejected, accepted, whatever?
I have all that information. I
Mhm.
still need to kind of coalesce it
Yep,
into,
okay.
like, I wish that there was some sort of like intranet or sort of, like way to kind of, other than creating a folder on like a staff drive on
Yep.
one of our Microsoft account, I do have copies of all the grants, and then Carla McAuliffe, who's the town accountant, she does keep a file on grants that that go into a fund that the library expends. So that information, that sort of historical information is there. This money at this point, the LSTA money, the $10,000, has not even been awarded yet. We actually, Marguerite got CC'd as trustee chair, but I had to sign some of the contracts. Mark Purple had to sign some of the contracts because he's the chief procurement officer for the town. And we had Carla and Brian also sign off on some aspects of it. So this is like a big grant. I would say it's probably going to be the biggest thing we do this year. I kind of have been, I think maybe not, it's not as much of a joke lately. I don't know how many more grants I can do. Like I kind of need a break, I would say. So I don't think we're going to be doing other than kind of regular things we apply for, like Kim kind of works on applying for Southborough Community Fund funds for youth programming. We've talked about doing an adult program for Southborough Cultural Arts Council this year, which is in the director's report. Other than kind of those, regular sources of money that we apply for every year, I don't really see a future LSTA grant for us on the horizon. To be honest, I think our next big focus on trying to get grant money is going to be for the library expansion project. So that's going to be my
Yes, and
where I
a
put my
huge-
energy.
A huge thank you for all the work that was done on this grant, which I know is like a massive amount of time and attention to detail. I'm just wondering if there's, and I may be alone in this, any system, say in 5 years when someone looks back to see what grants have been applied for and received and which ones we've been involved with, whether there will be any kind of documentation for that.
Well, we typically make a a note in the report that goes, the library section of the town report. So
Mhm.
there is kind of a record to it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm happy to do more of a retrospective, talk about all the big grants since
All right.
I've been here that I've been involved in or helped to oversee. I can also tell you, this is a good segue into something we're gonna have to work on next year, everyone, which is that there's, as part of applying for LSTA funds, you need to have a strategic 5-year plan on file with the MBLC. Many, I think some of the trustees who have been here have been involved in a strategic plan, and some of you have not, I think. So we, next year, just to kind of excite all of you, is a strategic planning year. We have to have one ready to go by October of FY24.
Mhm.
So that's next year. I'm telling you a year from now because we need to get a lot of public input. So there is a survey which directly goes into a section where we're asking for feedback from the public. And there also is, you can do either focus groups or a survey to get public input. For our library, I typically do both. I found that that is helpful. We did targeted focuses groups in the last strategic plan. I know all of you have it memorized though, with some middle school. There's a middle school library group and a senior group that we did. We will probably try to do that again, and maybe even a general adult one. We also had a couple sort of like open forums where we had members of the public come and give feedback. So I'll probably do that as well. And then you guys have to vote on the final plan. So
Yeah, that's okay. So that's a good heads up. Something to look forward to now that we've finished dealing with the roof.
it's part of the reason why I'm saying I probably won't be doing any big grants in the next year after the LSTA one, because first of all, we have until I think September or October of next year to expend the funds. So there's a pretty wide margin that we're going to be, you're going to see a lot of cooking programs from the library because we have the money to do them now. So that's going to happen on that end. And Mariana's kind of taking point on booking all the programs and working with the vendors. And then really my focus at the beginning of next year is going to be on a new strategic planning cycle.
Okay, that's good. All right. Any other director's report comments, questions, feedback, requests? Thank you. It's
Are we gonna talk about lockers later, did you say?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
okay. All right, so let's move on to the library facade restoration project.
So I think we covered that because we talked about the leak. And then we haven't had any, we can talk a little bit, Janet, I guess, about our continued work with Mrs. Packard
Preservation Worcester.
from Preservation Worcester. At this point, I provided a very quick written report. There was going to be a CPC meeting this week. So Freddie had asked if we could attend, and Janet and I were not. We got asked the same day. I think the meeting was going to happen. So I just said we weren't available to go that night. So I just did write up a quick report on where we're at with the preservation restriction. I believe the CPC meeting is going to happen. The next one's going to be October 30th that they have planned. I'm going to try to go to that meeting just to give them a quick update. Really where we're at with it, just to let you guys know, is that we got examples from Preservation Worcester of example restrictions. We have sent that to town council's office, town council, not town council. So the town council's office has all of that. And then we put in a legal request form for them to draft the restriction so that we had a working draft we could work off of. That was about a month ago. You know, they did communicate. I think the Mr. Tallerman's office is doing a lot of work for the town, including for the upcoming fall town meeting. So we're in the pipeline, but we haven't received a draft back yet. I plan to follow up early next week.
Okay, so good. So we're waiting to hear back, and things are in progress. Is that accurate? Good. All right. So let's move on to item number 5, appointment of senior library assistant, and number 6, appointment of library assistant. Both happy agenda items.
Yes, so this will require a vote. I would like you, if the board will entertain, I would like the board to do the appointment separate. I think we've tried to batch them together in the past, and that sometimes does not work. I don't know if anybody before I will let you know, Marguerite, my recommendation on the motion you can make, if that's also something you'll entertain. But I wanted before I think the motion happens, if you guys have any discussion or you have any questions for me about the process, I'm happy to answer those.
We know it was a very long process and that you were very thorough. Does anyone have any questions or objections to these hires?
I would just say that Carol seems to me to strike the ideal balance between being very professional and yet very warm and very customer focused. So I have not met the other person, but I heartily endorse Carol Logan.
Good. Any questions about the pay grades? No? Okay, then do I have a motion to accept Ryan's recommendation for
I
the
motion.
appointment of Carol Logan? Okay, Amy moves, and do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and David seconds. All those in favor, Landry, aye. Ms. Yazdani,
Aye.
Mr. Ekberg,
Aye.
Ms. Maney,
Aye.
Ms. Reagan.
Aye.
All right, so we have voted unanimously in favor of following your recommendation for the appointment of Carol Logan as senior
23
library assistant
yeah.
effective January 22nd, 2022, for 38 hours per week.
At
And
$23.04 an
4
hour.
cents an hour
Yeah.
under Schedule A, Grade 3 of the Town of Southborough's Salary Administration Plan.
Sorry to be specific, but
No,
I did.
no, thank you.
We have gotten feedback sometimes about the motions and the votes in prior cycles of hiring. And Vanessa Hale and I, the assistant town administrator, did think it was a good idea for you to explicitly in your motion put
Mhm.
what the pay rate is, just to let you know before we go to the second vote. The motion for the salary is above the minimum of the pay grade, but it is below the midpoint. So the town administrator, Mark Purple, has the ability to approve a salary amount that is up to the midpoint for us if I request it. So
Wow.
I'm going to request that he approve both of these salaries. So it is conditional on Mark Purple's approval, but you don't have to make that part of your motion. I just want you to understand what the process is, because as many of you know, this has been a learning process. It never feels like we do this the same way twice. And I'm really hoping we iron this out for the future.
All right,
So
do you want me to read the entire letter into the
No.
record? All right.
You just have to make a motion to
right.
appoint the individual name for the
Mhm.
individual title at the pay rate.
Okay, all right, so so
You
Carol
did it for
is-
Carol. You did a
yeah,
good job.
Carol
Marguerite.
is done. All right, here's the following. I am making a motion to confirm the appointment of Elizabeth Libby Goodrow to the full-time position of library assistant effective September 22nd for 38 hours per week. And the pay grade is discussed in our monthly meeting on September 16, 2022. We accept the library director Ryan Donovan's recommendation to appoint this individual with a pay rate of $21.83 per hour under Schedule A, Grade 2 of the Town of Southborough's Salary Administration Plan. Do I hear a
I'll motion. Oh,
okay.
It's 2181. Sorry,
2181? Did I say that?
you said 2183.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. 2181. We got to get that 2 cents
Yeah.
absolutely
I will-
right.
I
Okay.
motion.
Amy moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Janet second. All right, Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Yazdani,
Aye.
Trustee Ekberg,
Aye.
Trustee Maney,
Aye.
Trustee Reagan.
Aye.
All right, accepted unanimously. Are we good now?
Yes, I know all of
Thank
you
you for
were
your
wondering.
instruction.
Thank you. I'm trying not to be corrective, but I just want to make sure that we do this right so that we don't have to have another meeting to
Yes,
do it
thank you.
again.
You're
I-
like legal guidance on these things.
I'm not an attorney.
No, but
I
also,
know,
thank you for the hires. That's gonna, I know you put a
well,
lot of work.
thank them for wanting to work here and for
Oh.
accepting the position. I will also say, because I know this was a question on all of your minds that you were just dying to ask, which is, do we have the budget to pay the employees these amounts of money? And the answer is yes. So thank you guys for all having that thought, and I'm happy to confirm that this is in our budget and we can afford to pay the employees this amount.
Thank you for doing such a great job with the budget, by the way, BTW. All right. All right, can we move on to agenda item 7, which is the use of the Ella Eaton room? I know there's some changes coming up on this.
Yes, so as you recall, when the building closed, everything in the building was closed to the public. But when we reopened, there was a discussion about not reopening the Ella Eaton meeting room. There's a limited capacity. We're not supposed to have more than 26 people in the room at one time because of fire codes. The room is not reopened, and the library has now been open to the public for over a year. Mariana has been sort of asking about this, not because there's been we've been inundated with meeting requests, but because the teen room we're discovering is not big enough in order to do some of the teen programming that Mariana would like to achieve. Also, the room used to be used for certain select like children's programs, including the Lego time, which I think many of you probably, if you had small kids, remember, right? We used to set up the tables in there, and we would have like little buckets of the Legos. In addition to this, the genealogy club, which uses laptops in order to search ancestry.com, they like using the room specifically because of the access to outlets. And they're a regular program that's been happening for over a decade at the library. So this is kind of the perfect storm, I think, of having the requests are kind of there in order to use this. What I'd like to kind of christen, for a better term, like I'd like to reallocate the Eaton room as a programming space, which would specifically be kind of earmarked for youth programming. But also I think there's some applications for adult groups as well, like the genealogy club. Most of the meetings that people would like to have at the library, I can tell you, are larger than the room could accommodate in a regular sense. Also, as we go into the winter season, the staff have continued to kind of eat lunch outside when the weather is nice, but I'd like to kind of allocate the room, at least for part of the day, as a space for staff to eat lunch. That started occurring over COVID, and that has really continued during the bad weather. So we don't have any other space in the library for the staff to do that. The staff who try to eat lunch in the processing room, I can tell you it just doesn't work. There's too much activity there. I think you all have seen that if you're in the library too, right? They can at least get away from activity, like working activity, from the public, like to a certain extent. They can go downstairs, they can go in that room, and they can eat lunch in like some semblance of peace for 20 minutes. And that's something I think we can afford our staff at minimum, right? So
excuse me, but are you basically to discontinue the use of it as a meeting room and use it as a staff room? Is that?
Well, so part staff room, but mostly a youth programming room. Okay. So we would run teen programs, children's programs, and select adult programs in there.
Okay, so how is that different from what's going on now?
We used to let outside groups, if they wanted a space, right, to book the room at the library. I can also say that for a while we were the only I think we are the only town department that was letting non-town entities do it, right?
Mhm.
So, at one point, the Toastmasters group for
Mhm.
public speaking was meeting here. We had an Overeaters Anonymous group that
Mhm.
was meeting here. None of these groups have returned in sort of a post-COVID environment. They've all found other ways to meet. Rotary, I think they meet upstairs in public on Wednesday evenings every
Mhm.
other week. And they like that because they can engage with members of the public who might want to come to their meetings or have conversations with them. So that is also something I think you all know too, that if a group wants to try to meet at the library, I have a conversation with them and I try to go over what the limitations in our space are, and we try to accommodate them if we can. But I don't think that kind of having the room the way that we did it before is going to work now. It doesn't. It wasn't really working years ago when we were doing it. There was a lot of confusion. We tried to have tutors meet in that room. A lot of the tutors didn't want to meet in that room. They wanted to meet upstairs. People typically want the upstairs space. So
Well,
that is
there
what
was the other problem about it being a kind of a off the beaten track place to be tutoring. That was the other issue.
and to be blunt, our teen room is not big enough. So if we want to try to have an area where we can circulate and have books, I think we're also going to have to look at a space that the kids could use as a program room, at least some of the time.
Ryan, what this says to me is we are so desperately in need of more space
Right.
to have programs from the outside and our own. I mean, it just underlines again the fact that we are so used to functioning in a cramped space that yes, the staff needs a place to eat. So I totally support what you're saying, but long term, boy, do we need room.
No, I think that's the least we could do is let our staff get away for a few minutes and have some
Yeah.
peace
Yep.
to eat their lunch, take their break.
Yeah.
And I do think, Ryan, you scheduling that room for outside groups with everything else has gotten to be too much. So I think exactly what you're suggesting makes sense.
Right. Any other comments? Do you need a vote on this, or are you just announcing it as a decision of yours that we should know about?
I mean, I never want to stop you guys from voting if you want to. I mean, we didn't vote on closing the room at the time. I think kind of reallocating the room falls to me. I just thought it was important to talk to you about where I'm at with it, and that I've had discussions with Kim Ivers. I've had discussions with Mariana. I think there are applications for them using the room. We have over the past several months really used this as a facilities staging area for the different projects they were doing. There was ceiling tiles in that room. The quilt was stored in that room. Part of what I need to do in the next couple of weeks is just clean that space up, so it could even be used for the things that we're talking about. Like when the staff eat lunch, they're at a table, but they're surrounded kind of by just stuff we've flung in the room because we have no storage is the other issue too.
I know.
So
We
I'm
really
saying this.
need space. Yep. I know.
It's not gonna be kind of the meeting room in the traditional sense, but also the space is still gonna be multifunctional because there is no space in our library that doesn't function as multiple things at once, right? So that is just kind of, I think it's an evolution of the room, to be honest. And I think if you are comfortable with letting Kim, Mariana, and I kind of map out what we would like to do, and then I'd like to start posting a schedule, like outside of the room on the things that we have that are going to occur there. And that's something I'm going to work with our new staff member on, is kind of helping to maintain a schedule and to post it, because that's something I've always wanted to try to do.
Ryan, I think everything you have outlined makes a lot of sense. Like you said, everything needs to be multi-purpose in order to get what you need done. I think it makes sense to give the staff the room to have lunch, not sitting 2 inches away from someone else, and for you to be able to use it for programming. I mean, I thought in the past, the use of it as a meeting room, it did work in the past, but like you said, a lot of groups have not come back. And I don't think we should keep it open as a meeting space just for the sake of saying that we have it when it's truly not an ideal space that was super desirable for people to meet. So, I mean, I don't think we need to vote on this, but I think that your discretion of using that room for, the best of the programs and the staff needs makes sense to me.
That's good. That says it well. So, any other questions or comments? Okay, then yes, we support your slight shift in the use of the Ella Eaton room. The agenda item number 8. Jane isn't able to be with us today, but she asked me, and I totally agree, that we should table the discussion of library signage until she's able to be here. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
She had considerable input, and I felt it would be only fair to her to have her actually, not being on a phone on the Mass Pike while we discuss it. If
I
that's
also don't think that this is a time-sensitive issue. I also
Yeah.
do not have a further update about the ARPA funded sign.
Mhm.
I know that Kevin Miller is starting to have conversations with Annie Pfaff and a few other people from CPC on integrating that. So, I mean, that was part of the reason I think this was on the agenda. And I haven't gotten any proofs or information from Mr. Miller since our conversation the week of the prior meeting.
All
So
right.
hopefully I can have an update next time.
Okay, good. So we'll table that until our next meeting. The space use policy, I think this is a table also because there hasn't been time to finalize anything, Ryan, am I right?
It's the same. The grant, the outside grant policy was also
Mhm.
something that we've tabled multiple meetings.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have not been able to have time to put together a draft of a policy. I put this on the agenda so that that I know that I need to sit down and draft them and write them up, at least so
Yes.
we can start discussing it. And I apologize that this has been so delayed. It
Oh,
is
God,
something
never apologize. Please, you're doing the work of 6 people already as it is. It's like, no, this is on your to-do list. We understand that, right? It will be done. Oh, now here's 10, the purchase of staff lockers. This kind of goes back to the Ella Eaton room discussion, if you want to.
Yeah,
fill us
so
in
this
on
is connected. I would like the board's permission, authority, I guess, to look at potentially utilizing state aid funds to purchase. This has been a request for the last several years. This is definitely coming up again. I would say as we talk about, as the discussions have sort of continued about allocating the Eaton room specifically during lunchtime for the staff, is if the room is not going to function as a meeting room, could we potentially install lockers that the staff could utilize? There really is no place we bought a couple coat racks, you'll recall, that go in the staff room, and there's a public one that's outside the children's room. Those were because there literally was no place other than the back of a chair to put your coat at the library. There have been requests from staff where could I have just a space where I could lock up my pocketbook, where I could lock up my jacket or any personal effects. So I have started to explore looking at different lockers. I don't have anything ready to go at this point. There's a couple different vendors that we could look at. Pricing it out, I would say we're looking at, if I just get it for like the full-time staff, I think it's anywhere from $800 to $1,000. It's not inexpensive. That's part of the reason why I thought it was worth having a discussion as a separate agenda item. You don't need to approve anything at this point. I just maybe your blessing is a better way to phrase it, is that, can I continue to pursue this? Do you have any objections as a group to me moving forward?
No, I think it's a good idea. I can't believe that, they don't have anywhere to safely put their things as it is. So
I
I
agree.
think that opens us up to a little bit of some liability without having it, but again, it's a minor thing we can provide for people who work so hard for us. It's my
Ryan,
opinion.
when I first read this, my first thought was that there was a security issue. I hope I'm wrong about that. We're not talking about this because people's coats are disappearing or something. We're just talking about, well, just having a place that a person can call one's own and keep things under lock and key. But just assure us, please, that there hasn't been a history of things getting legs. Okay, that's all I want.
No, and I will say, this one of those rare instances, everyone, where I can be proactive. And I think that this would be a great way to avoid a future security issue.
Yeah.
Is that if staff can lock their stuff up and
Right.
that there's not a concern about, I mean, Southborough is a great town, right? I say this often, and it is good that we don't have things disappearing all the time, but I have worked in public libraries where if you leave something accidentally on a table, it's gone and you never get it back, right? So I at the very least, it's good I have an office because I can kind of put stuff up there and then I forget about it actively, but I am not immune to leaving things in the library and then having to try to go back and track them down. I just don't want the rest of the staff to have that experience. They should be able to put their stuff away and then to a certain extent, not worry about it during the day, during their workday.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I think it's the least we can do so they don't have to worry about that. And it's an appropriate use of state funds and we have the money for it. Where are you thinking of putting them, Ryan?
So we're looking at either the, because we've looked a lot at different areas. We think Eaton itself might be a place. So even though it'll be a youth programming room, we don't love the idea of the staff having their lockers there for programs occurring. So we're also looking at the kitchenette that is between Eaton and what would Eaton in the teen room, right? Because that area is typically closed. The staff go there to put lunches already. We just like space is kind of at a premium there. So we're kind of like trying to map out how exactly it would work. I think we can get it done there.
Yeah, if we use Eaton for them to be able to go and eat lunch, then that puts less pressure on the tiny kitchenette and could open space up for the lockers.
Why wouldn't we put them in the staff room upstairs?
We're gonna have to relocate something else if we do that. So right now there is like a staff workstation computer space. You are correct, Janet. Some of the discussions have been about putting them there. So there is a closet right now that includes like paper storage and envelopes, things like that. We may relocate that. It kind of depends on how many lockers we're going to purchase. Also, one thing John and I kind of just pitched around the ideas is having some of the lockers in one area and other lockers in another area. So because the lockers just width-wise will take up a significant amount of space. So if you get kind of like a triple set of lockers, which was kind of what we're looking at, maybe we put like one set in Eaton, one set in the kitchenette, and then we try to have one set upstairs. So it becomes expensive the more lockers you purchase. So it was getting into a price bracket where I had to talk to you guys about it.
What size lockers are we talking about? Like what kids have in schools?
It's similar. That I've looked a lot at this and I've talked a lot with other library directors about what they use for staff. And it really is very similar to what a high schooler would get in school. I can tell you what Belmont does, right? Because it's a little bit more familiar with them. They have both the long lockers, but they also have these sort of like mini boxes. So we thought about getting those as well for part-time staff, because those are kind of ideal for a pocketbook. I can tell you with 20 staff, not everybody's going to get like a full-size locker. We just don't have the capacity or the space to do that. But I think we can kind of be creative about where we put the lockers, and then getting maybe a different types for different types of staff if possible. So I'm going to do my best.
Okay.
Other questions? And this is for full-time only, not for part-time or not for the pages?
It might be for everybody. I can come back with a proposal. I will try to give, I'm gonna look at how many people are on shift at a time.
Mhm.
And then we will, the problem is if you give a staff member a locker, right, Marguerite?
Yeah.
They will, they get a lock, right, for the locker. So
Yeah.
then if they're using that locker as the kind of their space, no one else can use it. So that makes a lot of sense for a full-time person. But how much sense does it make for a part-time person? So should we provide the locker so I have a backup key? What happens when somebody leaves something? Like, they leave the library and they leave the locker too. So I think getting the box system, like the little boxes, maybe
Mhm.
for part-time staff like pages, that might make the most sense. Getting the full size for full-time staff, I think is kind of what I'm looking at.
It seems to me like a really good thing to do in terms of maybe getting stuff out of the way in other places, and also freeing up people's peace of mind while they're working, so they don't have to, as I know, when I leave a handbag somewhere, my brain is always still wondering if it's still there, which is no way to work. So, yep, sounds great. And I don't think $1,000 is a lot of money to pay for this. I think it's a good outlay. It's a fairly permanent thing, and it's going to make life a little better for the staff, which we are always happy to do. So I say,
I wouldn't want people leaving their things in their car because
no, yeah,
gyms, that happens, you go through rashes of break-ins in cars and stuff, and it's
yep,
safer if
exactly.
stuff's in the building.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. And then someone could bring their laptop in if they were going to use it later and not worry about it all day. I think that's a really good thing. So yes, please proceed. Trustees, do we need to look at a final plan for this, or are we just going to say, Ryan, go for it?
The latter.
Agreed.
All right, Ryan, go for it.
Marguerite,
Yes.
didn't we have that process before? We had set a certain dollar amount that we needed to be checked in with. Did we?
Yes, and I think how much was it? Was it $1,000?
Sorry, I can't remember.
I would say if I'm going to, I always come to you guys with all state aid requests, right? The more lockers we buy, the more expensive this is going to be. That's what I can tell you is kind of a baseline. We're looking at, without shipping costs, about $700 for 6 lockers for the full-time staff. So I didn't really price out the part-time option, right? That it's going to be closer to, I would say, like 1,500 if I really had to ballpark it right now.
Right.
But I can get you a more concrete amount at the next meeting. And let me continue to do more research, Kim, on this so that I can get a better sense of what the associated costs would be. I think that would be good to bring back to the next meeting.
Makes
Does
sense.
this have
Thank
to
you.
go through an approved vendor for the town, or can you do it from another vendor?
No, I'll get it. I'll have to do it through the vendor system, but Global Industrial is not somebody we've ever worked with before. That was one of the vendors I was looking at. They can provide a W-9 and we can get them on the vendor system. So I think that's also something I can do between this meeting and the next.
What does the police department use here?
This public safety building has very nice lockers, which I think were very expensive, but I would also like to, I was going to get the name of their vendor as well, Marguerite.
Okay, good.
Good eye.
I think that vendor was used by the school department recently too, so you might want to check with Keith Lavoie. He may know
Okay.
something.
Global
as well.
Industrial? Okay.
That name when we were doing some grants several years ago, that name sounds familiar. I could be wrong, but.
Yeah, they're definitely like one of the predominant ones, and they're that's where you get a lot of your high school lockers, but it's also what Belmont used as their vendor. And if you do a search for lockers, they're one of the first vendors that come up.
Was this one of the questions or one of the wishes that came up in one of the staff surveys?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Useful. That's great. Okay, so any other questions or comments on this, or shall we we could get public comment, except there's nobody in the public here to comment. So do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, let's set our next meeting while we're at it.
Oh, Margarita, I was so excited to motion to adjourn.
Hey, we got it. We're almost right at an hour. Just a
We're
little
right at
more.
an hour.
I'm
We got
teasing,
so
I'm
much
just
done.
teasing.
The budget cycle, the FY24 budget cycle we've got notified that it is gonna start soon. So I think I'm gonna have to work an initial draft for next year
Mhm.
by the next trustees meeting. So you guys might get a very early draft of next year's budget. If any of you want to meet with me one-on-one to discuss any specific items or issues, when I'm putting the initial draft budget together, please reach out to me. But also, we'll have a longer discussion, I think, about next year's budget in October. So that's also another thing to look forward to.
God, why does it sound so weird to have the budget for 2024 coming
In
up
November.
already?
We most likely, a final version of the budget probably
Yeah.
will not get approved, just to let you all know, until it's likely December or January. Yeah, and Janet said April, which is very actually accurate. But I think I'm not going to get the consortium costs probably until the November Users Council meeting. I know that the town likes to kind of try to get the information in quicker than that, but I really don't, I'm not going to have a final draft until I get that number. So,
All right.
just to let you all know where we're at.
We're
with
on the
that.
21st, is that right?
That sounds right. The
That's
town
what we
meeting is on the 13th, by the way.
I can't make the 21st.
All right.
Everybody else can.
Yeah, I
Do we
think
want to drop back to the 14th, or do we want to move out to the 28th?
Either's fine with me.
Okay.
14th is better for me of those
Alright.
two.
Could everybody make the 28th who's here?
I have a conflict on the 28th. I have a
Okay.
doctor's appointment in Boston.
Could
can
everybody
do-
make the 14th?
Yep.
Would the 14th be okay with everybody? Is that too soon?
Yep.
Well, I think that'll be
Okay.
good. Okay, so we'll set our next meeting for 11 a.m. excuse me, on Friday, October 14th.
Okay.
Good.
I
And
have one last thing just before we adjourn. I was on the mailing list from Kim Ivers for the Friends meeting, which occurred Wednesday night, which I attended quietly. And in case anybody wants to know, I'm happy to. I took notes, and I didn't participate except right at the end. I was asked if I had anything to say, and I simply said that the trustees are looking to develop a more collegial, if that's the right word, relationship with the Friends, and that was it. So I went, took notes, and I know that Amy, I think, is the official designated liaison, but I was at least there, and for what it's worth, and they have another meeting coming up on the I don't know.
12th. It's the same week.
12th,
you
yeah,
guys meet,
12th of
which is what
October.
happened this week too. So I will just note that Heritage Day is on the 10th, which is the Monday before your next meeting. I will be sending out communications from myself or in coordination with Diana Tremblay or from her. That's a call for volunteers. So if you guys are planning on attending Heritage Day, or you are available to help the Friends with the book sale. I know many of the trustees were able to help out at the June sale, and it was a very great to see members from both groups working together for the benefit of the library. If anybody is not available the 10th, but wants to work with Diana the week before to help come in and sort books, she's also looking for people to help with that. Heritage Day is bigger. It's the biggest sale we do. It's a little bit bigger than the June sale. So we're going to announce that we're accepting donations next week. And then they're going to all come in. And I think one of the things we're going to be using Eaton for, just to warn you guys, is book storage, because we're already running out of space in the processing room. So just if any of you want to connect with the friends, want to talk to Diana about helping out, just let me know and I'll make sure she gets your communication.
Okay, or Amy, do you want to run organizational for the book sale with the friends? Do you want to?
I'm running the 100th celebration for the community house across the street that
Oh
day.
my gosh.
Being part of it, so I'm probably I'm in the midst of a nightmare right now.
Of a nightmare right now. Okay, what do we need to know and publicize about the 100th anniversary for that? Since
we're working on it. I'll let you know.
keep us posted. We want to help.
Yeah, we're trying
with
to.
that.
There's going to be a proclamation where anybody who's interested, we're selling bricks that you can get your name on. We're going to pave the front walk. And we learned from Tim Davis, I spoke with him just recently, that they used to be a band in the front of the community house during Heritage Day. So we're going to try to do that as well. So
A band. Ooh,
Yeah.
that'll be fabulous. So do the trustees of the library need to contribute a brick to the Heritage House?
Yeah, it's the information we're working on our website, but it's $100 donation, and then you can put whatever you want on your brick. It's kind of a nice idea. And if you've been to the community house, there's the paved, the kind of a brick walkway. They're going to replace a lot of that with the named brick. So
Trustees, do we want to cough up for a brick?
I think we should do it individually.
yeah, everybody's welcome to take a peek and see if they're interested or not. And I think they're going to put a plaque on the inside with donors' names as well, but just FYI. But I think in the past hasn't Beth just sent out a request for volunteers? I think the friends like to coordinate. Speaking of what you brought up, Marguerite, friends like to coordinate their volunteers themselves. So I don't want to step on their toes. So I guess if you're interested, contact either, like Ryan said, Diana, and help her with her endless stacks of books. She's amazing at what she does.
I'll send you guys. And I know Kathy Gittens and Mary Tinty, who are the new executive board members. They're the vice president and the secretary, respectively. I think they're definitely going to help with the sorting the week before, so they're going to be kind of on site. But what I'll do is I'll just send you a quick email, guys, with Diana's email, so that if you do want to reach out to her and coordinate directly, you can do that.
Okay, good. Well, it's also good to know about the community house and its new its new birthday.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna put you on the hook for volunteering at the book sale too, Amy. I think you
don't want to zip back and forth all day?
Yeah.
Well, I have done that with Girl Scouts and being a vice president of the Friends. So they put me so that I was literally across the road so I could go back and forth. But yeah, I will be around. I just wanted not be otherwise distracted, but I will be fun to help sort books with Diana. So
okay, that's great. That's great. All right. Do we have any other news and announcements concerning Heritage Day? No. How about town meeting, which is on the 13th? Is there anything we need to be doing there, Ryan? Have we got anything on the? Nope. Okay.
I honestly don't even think I'm going to this town meeting unless there's a compelling reason you guys want me there. There's nothing. The library has no items of, I should say of consequence, but really like no items at all. There's nothing that directly affects the library so I would just say that I don't think that there's not going to be any personnel updates, nothing with the salary administration plan for this fall town meeting.
Right.
I know that they're just to give you guys a little bit of notice. I think there have been discussions on the town side recently, if you've been following them, on doing a regular fall town meeting on a regular basis. So especially since fall town meetings have come up so often in the past few years. So that might be something that starts happening. I think all of the annual business will still occur in the spring. So it's a matter of if we need to be at both. If we go for an expansion project and construction money, the budget cycle goes for the fall. So we'll have to do that at a fall town meeting in the future. So if they make this a regular thing, I think that's a good thing long-term for the library. So
Do we need to start laying the groundwork for the fact that we are going to do an expansion project? How many years in advance of the actual ask, do you think?
well, we put that in the capital plan. So
Mhm, and that was 24, right? 2 years
And
ago.
the groundwork is great segue, Marguerite, is going to be a large part of the strategic planning process. I think I think a lot of the targeted questions are going to be about space at the library and about what people
Right.
want.
Was it Westboro who had to go to town meeting 3 times before they got approval for their?
Yes.
So it was
And
just
that,
3
and
years.
that was 3 years.
Yeah. So at what point, I mean, just this isn't like discuss it now, but think about it. At what point do we have to start talking about the expansion so that we don't end up going for 3 years before we can,
It's the will of the voters, Marguerite. I mean, Shrewsbury had a similar process. I think they had to go 4 different times.
yeah,
They failed the first time pretty by a large
abysmally.
margin.
Right, exactly.
So-
And they had to come back and say, we're going to include in the expansion more meeting rooms for the town and more other things for the town. They learned by their failures, but is there any way to use what they learned so that we don't end up spending 3 years getting defeated at town meeting before we get just a thought.
We've never phrased the strategic planning process
Mhm.
as specific to looking at the future of the building. It's always been a part of it. It's always been an outcome of strategic planning, but I think it's going to be a lot more specified next year. And then the year after that is what we have in the capital plan for the planning and design money. So I
Right.
think in the next several years, this is going to be a large topic of conversation
Okay,
for
just saying
everybody.
we should actually start thinking about it, like for the spring town meeting. Not to ask for money, but to just sort of have you, when you give your short talk, say, we're expanding in a couple of years. So, just saying, okay?
We can definitely look at making that part of the library update, as long as the moderator allows me to make one.
I'm not saying anything. All right, do we have any further business to conduct today? No, do I have
Excuse
a
me.
I
motion?
motion to adjourn.
A motion. Amy moves to adjourn. Do I have a second? That would be Janet. Yes. I think, okay, Landry, Trustee Astani,
Aye.
Trustee Ekberg,
I,
Trustee Maney,
Aye.
Trustee Reagan.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourning. It is 12:17. Thank you, everyone. Great meeting. I think we got a lot done, and I'll see you at Heritage Day.
Yeah.
thank you all.
Bye. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for everything.
Bye, everybody.